Okay, so what I'm going to cover tonight is I've just got a data set here based on the World Bank data, and basically I've extracted it out. The data's been cleaned and put in here into Excel, and what I'm going to be having a look at tonight is the Australian population growth, or the population growth in Australia, in addition to some other countries, as well as inflation. So if I'm just coming down straight away here to my first graph that's based on the pivot table above, we can see here that Australia, so I'm just going to go straight in, go to the slicer, go to Australia. There we go. All right, so what I can see here, unfortunately I couldn't get rid of the sum, but you can see the years here, 1961 to 2023 on the x-axis, and then on the y-axis we have population growth percentage as a value. We can see here over time that during in 1971 it was the highest for Australia. For population growth, that was due to the government initiatives opening up immigration to create, to really push the Australian workforce, to really grow the country post sort of the 60s era, in addition to sort of people having more kids throughout this time. If I want to compare this to, say, a country population growth such as China, for example. Okay, so I've got China here and I've got Canada. I can now have a look and go, okay, well, this is sort of the trend over time. So China, we see here, everyone was pretty high in 1971 as sort of a result there, due to the fact that the birth rate was pretty high during that period, and then there was a lot of sort of post-war immigration, the 25 years after the war concluded, or World War II concluded. If I'm looking here now, we can really see that the growth for Australia is quite high, in addition to Canada, which would suggest part of the reason why property prices are increasing in these nations. If we look at China here, China really peaked here in the 70s and dropped off. It was sort of pretty distributed, pretty close in terms of the data points to Australia and Canada respectively, until we get into the 2000s, and China starts to really sort of drop as a result of the one-child policy starting to sort of decline. And we can really sort of see that relationship from when that that policy was implemented to where we are today, in their decrease there in population. So if I want to, next what I'm going to do, I can just whack on another country here just quickly. Okay, so if I chuck Switzerland on as well, and some of these other countries like Colombia, we can see that they've all been there's been declines there. There's nothing to really note. Germany, we saw a massive drop here in 2011, where no one moved to Germany. And then you sort of see in the 60s here, it was sort of restabilizing itself post-war. Over here next, inflation and population growth as a percentage comparison. So if I'm just going to look here, I can do different countries, but Australia is the most important. If I'm looking at inflation percentage versus the population growth percentage, we can sort of see here, the one to note is inflation was highest in 1974, whereas we saw the highest for population growth in 1971. So that kind of followed each other, but the trend doesn't, there's no real pattern here that comes to immediate attention that would suggest that really high population growth in Australia is the sole indicator of inflation. And we'd have to have a bit more of a look around consumer spending to determine the correlations and causations of that.